today is February 12th, and we're at Berda Morley and Uncle Jer's house.
Right.
Jer Morley.
And Tricia McGrath is on camera, and Cheryl Revkin's doing the interview.
And this is a beautiful home. So we're about to interview both of them, and we're so excited. So it's the Silver Lake History Collective.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Start at the beginning.
You want to sit over there closer to them?
Yeah. Jerry, when were you born?
November 22.
11/22/32.
32?
Thank you so much.
A year older.
Okay.
A year and a month.
And what city were you born in, Berda?
Philadelphia.
Do you have a picture of yourself here? Was that a baby picture of yourself?
No, that's me holding a baby.
Holding
I think the youngest one would be that one.
Okay, so you have one sister?
I had two sisters,
Two sisters.
Rissa and Etta, and Berda,
Oh, great.
and a brother named Arthur.
Oh, and a brother. And how did you get out to California?
My brother was a doctor, and he had, during the war, he was in the public health service, and he was stationed in California, and he loved it. So he and his wife settled out here, and then my sister and brother-in-law came out after that. He had a job offer, and it was a big job. It was $20,000 a year in 1955. That was considered a good income.
Yeah.
So I came along as their babysitter. They had two kids. But I had other plans when I came along that I was going to stay here because at the time, a single woman who wasn't married and was 21 years old did not live alone or did not live with, unless they were a certain economic group, and then they lived, I guess, in women's hotels and things. But when I got out here, I stayed with my sister for a while, and I got my own apartment, and that was very exciting.
And Jerry, you said you were born in Pasadena, huh? So how did your parents happen to come to California? Do you know?
My father's from Massachusetts. He came here in 28. And my mother was born in Colorado. She came here a couple of years later.
Did they come here for work?
That's what most people did.
Yeah, yeah.
Except that they were still teenagers, right, at that point?
Yeah, and my mother's father was a carpenter, and he had work. It was the end of the Depression, and work was hard to come by, and so when they were lucky enough to get it, they grabbed it.
I see.
So his first job was climbing to the top of these mountains behind San Fernando Valley and cutting brush all day long.
Oh.
He had to be up there at dawn when the sun came up.
And then what kind of work, that was your grandfather who did that? And what kind of work did your dad do?
He started out as in the shoe factory, and that was kind of the training that a lot of people got growing up in Massachusetts. And then he had a job out here at another shoe factory. And then he got a job at Sears and Shoe Department and went up the ladder.
Huh. That's sort of my father's story in a lot of ways. He was in the shoe business, floor-shine shoes, worked his way up the ladder. That's funny. Okay, so how did you two meet then? How did that happen?
His friend, Art West, had a house in Mount Washington, and he was going to Guatemala for 6 months to paint, be an artist, you know, and so Jerry was in charge of his house, and I rented his house.
Oh.
So we met, and when I came to look at it, Jerry was introduced as the person who I would pay the rent to, and he would do the gardening, because he was a gardener at the time. And it's kind of like Lady Chapel.
You mean mad hot love right away?
No, he's just, on my part, I don't know about his part. I don't think he was mad about Very, very placid.
Uh-huh.
Very,
Uh-huh.
very.
Placid, kind of, And you were
I
more...
was the aggressor.
So, all right, so how old were you then when you met, both of you? Do you remember?
32.
31 and 32.
Really? So you were kind of a little bit older
For then, yeah.
for then,
And
right?
my son was born when I was 33, and at the time, I belonged to an older mother's group,
Oh.
because I was considered an older mother. Well, you know, my peers were mostly had 10 and 12-year-olds.
So what was your son's name?
Ivan,
Ivan. And what hospital was he born in?
St. Joseph's in Burbank.
In Burbank. Oh.
Jerry was an only child, and Ivan is an only child.
Uh-huh. And where were you married?
In the courthouse in Malibu Beach,
Oh.
where my friend had been married the year before, and I carried her bride bouquet. And I always said we were wedged in between two traffic violations. And my mother, the traditional thing for Jewish family, the bride's family, is to pay the rabbi. So my mother gave the judge $10 after the ceremony. I was a little embarrassed, but whatever.
So you didn't have a Jewish wedding because Jerry's is not Jewish, right?
And I would call myself a secular Jew, because although I have an attraction to the traditions of Judaism, and more so as I grow older, I didn't have, we celebrated Hanukkah just by having dinner. There was no gifts or anything, and it was a very, kind of a deprived childhood, and I don't say that for sympathy, but it's just the fact of the matter, I was born during the Depression. My father had a lot of trouble holding down a job because he had a really major anger management problem. They used to call it a temper.
There was a picture here of your father in the cornfields.
It's in the frame.
Oh, okay. Maybe you can hold that up. Why don't you explain that picture a little bit?
This was taken in New Jersey, probably in like 1905, something like that, which is the same age as his house. And he was, I can't remember how many peers he had. I think he had 2 sisters. And he was born in 1894. He was a butcher, and he had a butcher shop briefly, but he went out of business because it was right when the supermarket opened nearby. That was in Atlantic City. And he had a hard life. He was very smart but uneducated.
Kind of angry, he said.
Yeah, he had a lot of repressed and not so repressed anger.
Why was he in the cornfield here? He was about 10,
his
12 years old.
family, they're Lithuanian Jews, and that particular area of New Jersey was very attracted a lot of Jewish families, and there's still a lot of them there who were farmers and merchants, and had little stores. And I still have a cousin who runs a market in that area. It's like Vineland, New Jersey, which is fairly well known, and Norma, New Jersey, and it's very interesting culturally. Most of them are very observant Jews too. It's like they're hanging on to their identity.
Okay, so you moved out here because your siblings moved here.
Right, and I wanted to be free of my parents because I was interested in things that they were tolerant of, but I was interested in, I joined the fellowship club when I was in high school.
Where was that?
In Philadelphia, Germantown High, and I was the president of the fellowship club. And that was my first time to see or meet African Americans on my same level. I had seen some housekeepers and, maids in the neighborhood, but that was an awakening of sorts. We went. It was when I first became interested in jazz, which became a huge part of my life. I was a jazz groupie.
Here in LA, you were.
And in Philadelphia, from the time I was probably, I was very young when I first started going. I was still in high school when I started going to clubs. But they, you had to be 21, but they never enforced it. And I wore long earrings and orange lipstick, so.
Kind of a hippie before hippies.
Right. Well,
or beatniks, maybe.
Bohemian, or, I never related to hippies because I was a generation ahead. I mean, to some extent, but I was never
Bohemian, I think, yeah.
Never into pot smoking, particularly.
Did you like music, Jerry?
Oh, yeah.
That was part of our interest.
In each other. That's what I kind of picked up a little bit. Okay, so
an unusual appreciation of music for a white boy.
Unusual?
Yeah. So in your 20s, Berta, what did you do? Were you working, or were you going to jazz clubs?
as often as I could. I was working at Juvenile Hall. Let's see, I came out here in 55. I went back to Philadelphia for a brief period of time. And then when I came back in 1960, I worked at Juvenile Hall as an attendant at night. I had worked as a social worker in Philadelphia, but I never did have a degree. I just finished about 3 years at Temple University. But then, while I was still working at Juvenile Hall, I used to go to the Renaissance Jazz Club, which is now the House of Blues. And they had a little boutique in the front, and the people who ran it asked me to, I said I did some sewing, so they asked me to make a poncho, which I made with hand fringed and everything, and they gave me $6 for it.
No.
So I was telling my sister, and she said, why don't we open our own shop? So
This is the beginning of retail,
this
right?
is the beginning, yes. And we opened a store right near USC.
So it was a clothing store? Or?
Yeah, it was a boutique, but nobody knew what that meant at the time, or called it that. People couldn't relate to it. It was so, and we kind of patterned it after a store that I had known in Philadelphia, but our store was much smaller. And then a couple of years later, we moved across the street and we rented a place owned by USC. It was on the USC campus. The only reason we chose that was that my sister lived maybe 10 or 15 minutes west of there, and she had little kids still, and it was the most convenient. So I would work all night and come to the store in the morning and she would come and do bookkeeping, and we would go buying together, but we also sewed a lot of our own stuff.
Oh, you did?
Then we hired a seamstress, and it became very, then Jerry entered the picture, and he took over a part of the shop which we made into a full-on hippie boutique. It had posters and paraphernalia and plants, and we sold lots of jewelry, and it became pretty successful.
Yeah, I was going to ask, obviously you were successful at doing that. Can I just ask, how did you get the idea to put something more than clothes in the store, like posters and jewelry and artifacts?
This was not Uncle Jer's. This
No,
was
I know.
what was the name of the store?
Potpourri.
Potpourri.
Thank you.
Actually,
Most of the customer call it potpourri. But in fact, I was down there not too long ago, and I looked around at highlights, and I decided that our store used to stand right where that bush is now.
On what street?
It was torn down, actually,
It was over in
Jefferson.
Jefferson.
But you were interested in doing retail yourself?
Yeah, I like finding stuff, and we started with, I think, yard sale stuff, and then we started going to the gift show. Picking up knickknacks and things.
You kind of had an eye
He
for
never had an entrepreneurial bent. It was not his thing. What his real talent was, and was for a long time, was selecting very edgy, out there items that people hadn't seen before, and his low-key personality was very attractive to a lot of people. He never ever sold anything. He just showed it.
I did too. I sold posters.
No, but I mean, you didn't try to talk
Push
it.
But I had these giant, I recall, dollar posters. They were, well, half as big as that fireplace wall. And what was I gonna?
Giant posters.
I started selling tickets to the Shrine concerts, the rock and roll concerts.
Do you remember those?
Yeah. Do you remember a famous, group that you had a poster of, like?
John Mayall. We have a picture of this shop with the Mayall poster in front of it.
Great.
I can't put my hand on it.
So would you say you enjoyed yourself, Jerry? Did you like finding things and putting them in the shop?
Oh yeah.
One of the first pickers.
And Berda, you enjoyed having a shop, I guess.
I was good at it. I was very, very anxious and stressful. We had an accountant who said that I acted as if the Prussians were coming over the hill at any moment. The Cossacks, that's what he said. Because I just had a lot of anxiety, which was my father was not successful, and my mother was always whining and crying and acting like we were going to go to the poorhouse. In fact, she used that expression a lot. And so I loved it, but I was obsessive about it. I worked till 10 o'clock every night, and everything had to be perfect. And
How many years were you there?
we were there. We opened in the fall of 1960. Jerry and I left the business in 1971, and it closed in 75 because the USC wanted that property to make a shopping mall. We had a second floor. That was interesting. We had a big cutting table, and we had 3 seamstresses.
I like to think that they were jealous of our success.
USC.
Why did you leave the business in 71?
We wanted to do something different. We thought we would move up north where some of our friends had moved. And so we rented this house for $300 a month. And we traveled for and we stayed in a little house out front. It's like a shack. But we traveled a lot during that year.
With the baby?
He was 6 years old, yeah.
Oh.
And we never found anything we liked better. And I was in a women's group at the time that was very important to me. It was like sustenance and
Nurturing?
nurturing, yeah. And
You wanted to come back to
I
it?
wanted to come back, yeah.
So,
My family was still here too.
oh, that's good. So did you then choose Los Feliz Silver Lake? Is that it? When you came back to open a shop?
What happened was that my sister still had the shop. It was 1972. And she would go downtown to the different offices to do buying, and there was an office that was the only one, a showroom that had ethnic stuff. The woman represented different importers, and Betty Bottom was her name. And my sister went there, and Betty knew me, and she said, "What's Berta doing? Would she like a job, as a sales rep?" I thought, why not? It sounds very easy to me. I knew what I hated about sales reps, how they told me what everyone was buying and what was important and what color was important. And I didn't want that information. I mean, I'm having my shop. I don't want to have what the person down the street has, So I knew what I thought made a good sales rep. And it turned out for that echelon of stores that bought imports, that it was true. That occasionally someone would say, "Tell me what to buy, tell me what's good, show me what you're selling," But when that happened, I just went, "Oh, I would do it." But anyway, Jerry started out by helping. I used to go to. They used to come to the California Mart to see our showroom, and then sometimes we'd go on the road. We would go to Santa Barbara one week, or to Claremont, or wherever. And then, how did that go down? Then he decided to open a store in Silver Lake.
You wanted to get back to retail?
He knew no, that was never attractive. I don't know how to say it, but it was like being in one place and having these little goodies around. He sometimes would even be resentful if somebody bought something that he loved, or he put an extra few bucks on, hoping that they wouldn't buy it. I mean, he's not entrepreneurial, and never was. Never will be.
So why?
Isn't that true, Jerry? You didn't get a
Well, you mean he wasn't a capitalist. He was an entrepreneur, but he wasn't a big capitalist.
He wasn't an entrepreneur. It wasn't his thrill. He didn't get enough.
I wanted to keep the stuff.
Yeah.
Did you ever get excited when you had a hot item? Like those little monkeys that squeaked?
Or the posters. Posters sold.
Can you remember ever feeling
Tickets.
excited about that?
Well,
I remember being happy about it. I mean, I had a wall of giant dollar posters. I had, I forget who it was, hanging next to Abraham Lincoln.
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, someone like that.
He had
why
a
did-
very, very dry sense of humor. And when people got it, they really got it.
I sold a lot of roach clips to the college boys, rolling papers.
One time we were selling flannel pajamas that had, I think they were Disney characters on them. It was very, very, nobody had anything like that. And there was a collective on somewhere near the Fraternity Row. USC was and still is very conservative. And some guy, the guy that was in the collective, published an article about the store and how dare we sell pajamas for $30. And he referred to Jerry as the
Dual.
Gila monster, Gila, that he was, quiet and raking in the dough. It made me so angry. Ivan was a little baby then. Jerry and Ivan and I went to the frat house, or was formerly a frat house, and Grady was the guy's name. I remember that. But anyway, we waited until he got there, and I told him exactly how hard we worked and what we did with our money and blah, 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 and he apologized.
I guess I want to focus a little bit on why you chose the location of Uncle Jer's, why you decided to come to that neighborhood.
Didn't it have to do with Michael and Esquer's handiwork and...
Oh, I don't know. She and her sister were there first.
No, not Uncle Jer's.
Or
You opened Uncle Jer's because I was still working at Betty Bottom.
I
And
opened
then-
this store. I opened this store before that.
Yeah, remember we used to put all the samples in there, and Helen managed it.
Down Fig.
No, that was on Sunset. The one we did have a thrift store for a while, just between our store and Uncle Jer's.
Where was that?
Red Mountain Trading Company, because that was the kind of wine he drank.
Where was that?
On Figueroa.
Uh-huh. Okay, so what Jerry said was you had the place by USC. You left for a few years. You started to work, and then you decided to open a shop, and that was the thrift store, or
No,
that was
Uncle Jer's.
That was Uncle
That's
Jer's.
the one with the. That's this one.
Okay, why don't you hold that? Here, we'll just hold it up here. And you found that place, this
He
location.
found it with. I don't know how you got a hold. How those people got a hold of you.
Okay,
Do you remember that?
Yeah,
Berda, you can.
somebody I knew saw this place vacant and told me about it.
But you didn't know the neighborhood that well, or?
I know it just, what's the word for it?
Superficially, maybe?
Yes.
It was partly all of the, everything in the store was hand-built, and this was all handmade. Jerry had the fiberglass lion made, and it's still on the corner of the building. It was part of the,
But you're saying the shop already came with some really nice things inside of it.
the inside wasn't as functional as it for us, but it had an earthy feeling.
Ah.
Little by little, we had to, change it for clothing. He sold mostly doodads and June
Where
crowns.
did you get the idea of the name Uncle Jer's?
My niece, Rochelle. Do you want to see a picture of her?
No, just
We
tell
will.
us the
We will.
Okay. She was a kid. We were talking about what to name the store, and she said, "Why don't you name it Uncle Jer's?" And that was-
That's what she referred to Jerry.
Yeah.
Uncle Jer.
So that's.
Okay.
He never really. Jer was not a nickname that he. Jerry was his nickname. Harry Jerome was his real name,
Oh.
and Harry was his father, so he wanted to be himself.
What was his last name?
Morley.
That's right.
So you were still working, and Jerry found the store and started selling knickknacks.
And I had a lot of clothing samples I had to buy, and I used to have sales at my house, and so we funneled the samples into the shop, and most of it was ethnic stuff anyway, so he did really well. I mean,
What year this was around when?
late 70s.
And Uncle Jer's officially opened in late 70s?
Let me think for a minute. I was 25 years old, and we left in 2001. So when would that be?
It was 76.
So it was around-
1976.
Yeah.
And you started bringing clothes in maybe a year after?
Samples from Indonesia, India, Haiti. We had some crocheted stuff from Haiti, from all over. And people started coming to the shop to sell him things. African sculpture, there were always African students bringing sculpture by, and Indians, Indians too would bring one-of-a-kind silk shirts, silk kurtas, those things with the
Collar.
bells and all.
Did you feel like you were the only ones with a shop like that in LA or on the east side maybe?
There were very few. There was one, I think, in South Pasadena. It's now Poi,
Oh,
but it was something. It was Sunny's before that, because I used to sell to her. It was very, there was not a lot of competition. And that was another thing in Silver Lake. I was very nervous about it because most of the, there was Nahidabel. Do you remember Nahidabel?
Sure. I was just going to ask you what
Yes.
other shops you remember
And there
at the
was
time.
also, what was the name of Wacko before it was
The
Wacko?
soap plant, Wacko.
Yes, his
Soap.
mother ran it. Do you
Right.
remember that?
I do.
So those were the two nearby, and then people would say it's better to have other things near you because people will come from other areas. But I was always very nervous about competition. I know that I knew intellectually that it was good, but they have better stuff than we have. You know, I wasn't really secure enough. Now when I look back, what was I thinking? You know, I mean, I was designing. I never identified myself as that. More of a kind stuff. We used to make really, really nice things out of ethnic fabrics. But
The French seamsters.
Did you live then? Where did you live
we've been
then?
living here for 47 years.
47 years, and this is Mount Washington, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then you would commute to the neighborhood, but your son went to school around here.
No, he went to preschool when he was about 2.5 at, what is that called? It's now the French school. Midtown. Midtown. By that Lautner property. He went there, and so it was just very convenient to go. I worked downtown most of the time, but I would go to the shop once in a while just to check it out. We did have different managers, a few different, 2 or 3.
So let's say this is 1980. Did you feel like you were in pretty full swing and making a living, doing well? Kind of
felt like that.
a destination?
I
No?
never felt like that.
You didn't. How about you, Jerry? Were you comfortable? Happy?
I don't remember those things. I was just thinking about, I used to drive my son up to the grade school on top of the mountain,
Up here?
Mount Washington School.
That's when he was after preschool.
And he decided he wanted to do it himself, so he hiked all the way up the face of this mountain every morning to go to school. And I thought that was very impressive.
And then would you go to the store after you dropped him off, or kind of do some business then, or take care of some business?
I'll give you an example of what I mean by not being entrepreneurial. Jerry used to close the day after Thanksgiving. He would give the employees that whole weekend off.
Oh.
You know that's
Black
called.
Friday. Yeah, right.
But anyway,
So was there friction a little bit
not a lot.
between you?
I just kind of thought, oh, there he goes again, or something like that. But there wasn't like conflict about it.
Oh, good.
It was mostly under my breath.
But you were a good team. It sounds like you acknowledged Jerry was different than you, but it worked in many ways that might not have worked for you.
It definitely. I made a lot of progress with the wholesale business, which I could not have done without his help. And that was much more successful always than the retail business because I worked on commission, and I was always felt like the Cossacks were coming over the hill at any moment, and I would lose my house. It was like a depression consciousness. It's only pretty recently that I've been able to relax about that. And I think that's why I have so much stuff. I have a guest house, a shack outside full of stuff. I always thought when the revolution comes and I have a van, I can always sell things. People are going to want ethnic fabrics, right, when the revolution comes.
I think the same way. Well, that's great. Why did you decide to finally sell Uncle Jer's, I guess, to turn it over?
Well, let's see. I was born in 1933, and it was 2001. So how old was I? I was
Almost 70. Yeah.
And Jerry was a year older, and it was just enough already, And Cassandra and Rob both worked at the store, and they really wanted it. So we came up with a very reasonable amount to sell it, thinking that they were going to continue the image of the store, but they didn't. And her father, Cassandra's father, wanted me to to teach her, show her, share the information. She didn't want it, and so I think they had some decent years, but it just went down, 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 and they attributed it to the economy, and they eventually closed in 2010, yeah.
So how many years is that? 20?
They had it for 10 years.
So you had it for almost 26 years. Or
Right.
27.
I did, I want to acknowledge.
Pardon me?
What, Jerry?
You don't have a picture of it, do you?
Of what?
Uncle Jer's done.
Yeah, we have several.
Yeah.
Good
This is a
idea.
good. You said, Jerry, that you like this picture. Why don't you hold it up?
We don't have potpourri. That's what we need,
No, the original,
right? Here.
no, the
That-
original was a shop, it was a converted house down
Oh,
at
that was
Road.
still Red Mountain.
Building, and you said you really like this picture because there's a swaying palm tree,
Yeah,
and then there's a woman sitting at the bus stop,
yeah.
and then you're standing outside of the store that everybody recognized, which is kind of near the Vista Theater. Can you hold it up to the camera
I
there?
would charge that this is was a good picture, and that it tells the story. Me, the shop, the street, the wind blowing, all that.
Yeah, that's great. And the other thing you were telling me earlier was that you would have a birthday sale every year. This is one example of it. Berta, why don't you hold this one? This is another birthday. This is Jerry
I
when
think Jerry was about 4 years old on here. Every year we try to find an interesting
Oh, that's so
picture
cute.
of him.
and Jerry, why don't you explain that? Hold it up to the camera. And this was another birthday sale with an old photo.
This was in Mazatlan, Mexico, with two buddies. We went down there in a ratty old car that this guy owned. It was a club coupe with a rumble seat. Is what that is.
Yeah.
Very crowded. After we got there, he traded it to a local Mexican, and he went back to Canada.
The car?
No, we went to Mexico in the car, and
He
sold
went-
it in Mexico, and then he went home to
Canada.
Canada. Yeah. These are two girls that we met. Actually, Art was the womanizer, and Terry and I woke up in the car. Art had these two girls outside. And said, "Hey, you guys, wake up! Come on, look what I got."
And one of them was pregnant, you said, right?
Yeah, they're both sisters, and one of them was pregnant.
This one says, stop by for a birthday kiss and wish your Uncle Jer a happy day. Clothing and jewelry on sale. As always, a percentage of their profits is donated to support humanitarian and environmental causes. That idea came to me. I used to drive to San Francisco with a van full of samples because we had trade shows there 5 times a year. And one time I was driving back and I heard on the news about a teenager who had committed suicide. And for some reason in my brain, I connected that with not having meaning in his life or not having whatever. So at that point I decided we really need to start giving because we had so many devoted customers. I mean, I at the time was just superficially aware of it, but the older I get, the more I realize how dedicated people were to that store. I never had a real sense of its importance. But anyway, that's when we started giving a percentage of our profits to.
Yeah, that's the one thing I was just leading to was how generous you were.
This was the first store.
Yeah, the first store, right? how generous you were, and you kind of taught the community, I think, in a lot of ways to be generous. And I think the community itself then responded to it in an even more generous way by patronizing you and spreading the word and just helping, always thinking of your business first, I think, in so many ways. And it really became a symbol of what Silver Lake, I think, stands for in a lot of ways. So I think one thing is the way I want to thank you for that, and also put you in the archive because it was so important, really.
So what was your first thought of how to get that going, to get to people?
Well, I started having sidewalk sales for the Hollywood Sunset Free Clinic because to me that was, I mean, I really believe that healthcare is a right, not a privilege, and that people, I mean, we had health insurance for our employees at Uncle Jer's, and that's unheard of in retail stores. But I thought, if I can get health care, why should, you know, the salesperson not be able to have some? So we, I mean, it was quite expensive, but we did it anyway.
It was a priority.
Yeah.
We don't have too much time left, right, Tricia?
Yeah.
How much?
40 minutes
40 minutes? How
on the tape.
could that be?
I don't know.
I think we've gone 40 minutes.
We've got 40 minutes and we had 88 to begin with.
Okay. I wanted you to talk about Berda Paradise, the thrift store, and your connection to the Hollywood Sunset Free Clinic, which is in Silver Lake on Sunset at Mitchell Tarina. So after you left Uncle Jer's, then did you open the thrift store? Or why did you tell us
we
about?
We opened it in Highland Park on Figueroa between 43 and 45 because there was a vacant store there, and I thought it would be easier because it was close to my home and I'd be more apt to, you know, like I didn't spend enough time there. But anyway, we used a lot of the things that I the racks, the portable racks that I had accumulated from doing the wholesale stuff, because you needed rolling racks to take things in and out of stores and for the trade show. So we opened the store, and it was, people were excited about it, but it didn't do very much business. It didn't do enough. And then Tacy found this location on Sunset.
Wait.
Yeah.
I think the
Tacy
people watching this are
Clyburn.
not going to know who Tacy is. She was the director
Yeah.
of the Hollywood Sunset Free Clinic, and a friend of yours?
She wasn't a friend of mine. She is now.
Mm-hmm.
But I could never get used to the idea of retiring. And and I loved merchandising. I loved putting stuff together, and I truly felt like an obligation, not obligation, but an appreciation of what we had gotten from the community. And so what better way than to meet my need to, you know, tinker in a store
And have
and meet a need of a clinic.
Okay, so your concept was to open a thrift store. You also had some merchandise from the garment district,
We
again.
used to get big donations from them.
From donations.
Some of the companies that I used to represent. But
And the proceeds, then, your idea was the proceeds from the thrift store, why don't you say?
they all the proceeds went to the clinic.
The
And
free
in the
clinic.
beginning, it wasn't an impressive amount. And I still would like it to do better than it does, but apparently I think it pays at least one person's salary every month, and they're really struggling now, you know.
So Tacy approached you about helping out, supporting the free clinic?
No, it was my idea.
Oh, it was your idea. And where did the idea come from?
Well, because I believed in the cause
Of free healthcare for
of
people.
free healthcare. I knew Paul Fleiss at the time. He was Ivan's pediatrician. He did volunteer work there, and it was very impressive to me that it could stay functioning for so many years. with so little money, and it's, I mean, maybe briefly they had a professional fundraiser, but they really need that, and they don't have it. And so, actually, it was recently that there was a event at Tay's restaurant, and they talked about the thrift store being such an important source of income for them, and I thought, boy, I mean, I really didn't realize it was as important as it is.
So originally it was in Mount Washington, but then you found a location in Silver Lake.
Correct.
And it's called Berda, as in your name, Paradise, as in Bird of Paradise. What's the...
That was this guy who's since deceased, who was very flamboyant. He used to come to the thrift store on Figueroa, and he'd stand in the doorway and he'd say, "Bird of Paradise, how are you today?" So, it wasn't my idea. I thought it should be Hollywood Sunset Free Clinic Thrift Store, so people would know specifically. And I still think that it could say in larger letters. But it's very difficult to get stuff done. There just aren't enough volunteers. And
at the thrift store.
Yeah, I mean, even having Jerry would do all the pickups with it. He had a pickup truck, but he had to put it to sleep recently, and so we really need help with that kind of stuff.
I didn't shoot it. I just passed it on.
What's the address, just so we know?
3506 Sunset Boulevard.
Sunset Boulevard. And how long has it been open in Silver Lake?
I never can remember that. I think it's about 13 years.
13 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's still not as well known as it should be.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it really needs publicity and
Promotion.
outreach and promotion. Ivan said it needs somebody with a New York fire in their belly to get behind it.
Yeah, I guess I'd like you to talk a little bit about Ivan and his life and your granddaughter. There's a picture of her, maybe. Here's a Valentine. Well, why don't you go ahead?
Ivan is our pride and joy. He went to Pasadena City. He's an artist. He went to Pasadena City College. He went to NYU, and then he went to
Chicago.
Art Center in Chicago, where he got his bachelor's degree. And then he, after that, he did art for a couple of years, and then he went back to get his master's degree from Art Center.
Here in LA?
Yes.
And he's a painter?
Fine art, yeah. That's one of his paintings right there on glass, but you can't see it, you need more light. He does very unusual stuff. He's represented by a gallery in New York and one in Los Angeles. And he has a new wife of 6 months and a beautiful 10-year-old child from his former marriage, who is a special needs little girl. She's 10 and a half years old now, but this was a collage that she did at her last school. And we adore her.
And what's her name?
Her name is Lena Madeline Morley.
And you have a big part in her life, right? Don't you? You care for, or you did anyway, care for her regularly?
Aurora and I take care of her. We pick her up at school every Wednesday, keep her overnight, and drive her back to Claremont Thursday morning at the crack of dawn. And we have her every other Sunday and whenever else we can get her, because she has other grandparents who want her. She's a very well-loved child and very well taken care of. There are things that she doesn't sleep well, so that's a problem, and she doesn't speak. So we just started intense speech therapy, which I'm going to cover I'm trying to get the rest of the family to participate a little bit.
Because she has cerebral palsy, is that
Yeah,
correct?
she has
Cerebral.
cerebral palsy, cerebral palsy.
Right. So it makes it difficult for her to speak.
She doesn't speak at all, hardly. She says Aurora, that's about what she says. And more, she's trying to, and then trying to, her what do they call it?
Small
Fine
motor.
motor skills are affected, so they're trying to get her to do a sign for more. And she can do it now. She's very excited about that. Because she has really bad temper tantrums when you don't know what they're. I don't even call them temper tantrums. They're
Frustration tantrum. Frustration tantrum.
yeah, she does, and she's like a wild child, and she gets that way.
Her name is Aurora,
Her
No,
name is Lena.
Lena.
and she can say Aurora. Is the
Yeah,
Yeah.
she loves Aurora,
She likes it.
and I'm very happy about that.
Jerry, do you see her much? Do you see them much?
Lena?
Yeah, when she's there.
Yeah, she's crazy about it. She laughs. They lay on the floor together. Does
Oh,
she
that's
still
nice.
pull your beard? I think so. She used to pull it
Yeah.
for years.
So she's 10 years old now?
Yeah.
So you've had a kind of a full life, really. I guess you were divorced at some point, right?
No, we've never done
Never divorced, right? But
We lived
okay.
separately.
And why did that happen? Was there some stress from life?
Well, I think I was trying to get more of a reaction from him one day, and he said, I can't take this anymore. Which, I mean, we're polar opposites. You know, I'm an East Coast Jewish woman who has to, I talk and I whine and I have a certain intensity, and Jerry's very low-key, you know.
I do my whining at home.
But
You compliment each other.
it seems that I've just been here a short time that you really care about each other and you still take care of each other and nurture each other.
Through thick and thin,
And you live just across the street, right, Jerry?
and up a very high, very steep hill that he walks up and down at least twice a day.
And you were saying that about Ivan, that Ivan walked the hill to elementary school, so maybe he got that from
He
you.
loves doing it, but I forced him.
Yeah. Can you just hold up a couple of these photographs and tell us a little bit? And
These are my parents,
what were their names?
Sarah Norvik and Israel Fisher.
And
They were born in 1892 and 1894, but my mother was the one born before my father, which we didn't know until that we were in the hearse on the way back from my father's funeral, when she confessed.
that she was older.
She was older.
Okay. And this one?
This is a picture of my father in the 40s instructing how to prepare a rib, is what it says on the back.
He was a meat cutter.
Yeah, he was worked in a packing house, and I don't know how it was called Cross Brothers. I don't know how they must have contracted with the Army to teach some of the guys how to cut beef. But this is definitely during World War II.
Here's another one.
That's another of the same.
Oh, it is.
Israel Fisher demonstrating meat cutting for Army butchers during World War II while working for Cross Brothers Meat Packers about 1943 in Philadelphia. Probably publicity photos taken by an Army photographer. How to bone a chuck.
My grandfather is about the same age, and he was a butcher, actually. So I know it was very
This is
important.
interesting because he had a heart attack when he was 53, and this is when he was about 63, and he's really lost a ton of weight. He lied about his age when he first came to California because he couldn't get a job.
Don't go away, maybe a few more.
How old was he when he first came?
When he died,
When he first came to California?
probably 62.
When he first came here?
Yeah,
And he couldn't get a job? Because he was too older?
yeah.
Oh, I
But-
see.
But he lied about his age, and he got a job at Ralph's. And this was Aunt Bella. Aunt Bella was one of 4 of my mother's sisters who never married.
No?
And
Lived out here?
they lived in Philadelphia in a 4-bedroom house. They all had their own bedrooms. And as I understood it, it was told to me is that Aunt Dora, who was the oldest, she was supposed to get married first. But my mother and her older sister, Esther, got married first, and so they were always resentful of that. But they were waiting for Dora to get married, the younger ones.
Yeah.
And,
And Bella never got married.
no, she didn't. She was nasty. She was frustrated, I think.
Oh, it's this one?
This is 1960, Berda Morley, in front of our first potpourri, which was a hot dog stand.
Can you see that? Uh-huh.
It was a hot dog stand on Hoover and Jefferson, right by USC, and that was really a challenge. It was really one of those metal hot dog stands, and you had to put plastic bags under the holes when it rained. And nobody could figure out what we were doing there. Is this a laundry?
Yeah.
You know?
Can you show that to Jerry? Jerry, what do you think of when you see Berta at that age and that dress, that store?
Well, that was before I met her.
Oh, it was. Oh, it was?
We met in 1964.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
And this was in what year?
1966.
Okay.
I made this dress, and it was with a Mexican sash. My brother-in-law thought it was outrageously short.
Revealing, huh?
He asked my sister to talk to me about it.
And I think there are just 2 photos left here. They're kind of small. I don't know.
This is Berda Morley at about 8 years old, standing in a field across from where we lived in Philadelphia in a row house.
You're a little chubby, were you?
That's when I first started getting chubby. It was
Not so chubby in 1964, though, or whatever.
it's been a struggle all my life with weight. This was this outfit that my brother bought me when he first started working. He's the one who was a doctor, and he worked as a cashier in a what do you call it? In a market. This is Berta at about age 10. It was 1944, so I was 11, with my nephew. I don't know if it's relevant, but he subsequently committed suicide in his 20s.
Well,
He was the son of a woman who talked like this.
Can I ask a quick question?
sure.
I just wanted to know, did you go to school back east, or when you came out? You went to school here.
Jerry,
Yeah, Jerry.
he was born here.
I was
Okay.
born in Pasadena.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And you went to PCC? No, that's your son. Getting me
I grew
confused.
up in Glendale,
Oh, okay.
And he
But
went
he
to
did go
Burbank
to
High School.
Burbank.
He went to Woodbury Business College. He
Oh,
got
okay.
his degree from there, which
Really?
is funny. He doesn't,
That's great.
not a bookkeeper.
But I had the GI Bill,
Okay.
so that's,
So you were in the service?
yeah,
Which branch of the service were you in?
Air Force. I was
And-
on a radar site in Texas.
Was that during the Korean War? Or
What war was it?
I think so.
after World War II, before
Do you know
Vietnam?
what year it was?
Korean. Yeah, I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
Must have been, yeah.
Was
Born
it
in
4
37.
years?
Wasn't it the Air National Guard?
Yeah, I went in with the Air National Guard. We went to Dallas, outside of Dallas, and sometimes I tell people that's where I grew up.
Where did, how long were you in there? 6 months?
I don't know. I could have been in Texas for 6 months.
And then did you travel after that in the Air Force?
No. I don't remember all that period.
Yeah.
I just remember parts of it. Like people I met down there, parties, jam sessions.
How different it was from Los Angeles.
And you both had a music interest, and your music were you as interested in jazz, or did you have another?
Mostly jazz.
Mostly jazz.
Blues.
Did you do jazz? Did they do jazz in the Air Force?
Yeah.
You had bands,
I wasn't in a band.
but you went to see the band.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those were the clubs. They had that music where all the action was. That's where you go to pick up chicks, meet people.
It's like a USO type of thing. No, it was just a group where you went.
So it was always kind of a formal thing. I didn't dig it so much. I always felt it was an act of desperation. But I still have good memories of the people I met there.
Were you drafted? Is that why you went in?
I went in with the Air National Guard, and the whole unit was drafted.
After Woodbury?
Yeah, we were sent outside of Dallas to set up a radar site, and I was in the office.
So I think we're going to kind of close up a little bit, but Berda, we'll wait for you to sit down. I just really want to say thank you, not only for this interview, which I think is going to be so precious and valuable to have for the community.
Can we see a copy of it?
We will give you a copy. And to thank you for Uncle Jer's, which is, for me, I moved here like in 1970. And I remember going to your shop all the time, but also with the Chamber of Commerce, knowing we could always count on you for gift certificates and things for fundraisers. And it was, so many people just couldn't believe it. You sold Uncle Jer's and then it closed, but really a very, very precious, wonderful place. And then for inviting us to your beautiful home and being together for the interview, so sharing your story.
I knew it was your home as soon as I walked in because of all the wonderful, like these two pictures back here.
Okay.
That's my grandchild's collage.
And then the other
That's a
picture.
beautiful picture of Jerry.
Yeah.
And Rochelle, my niece, managed the store and was an incredible jewelry buyer.
I was wondering what that, we've been looking at it the whole time.
And this one too.
Did I show this one on the?
No, you can.
This is my sister Rissa
Okay.
and me. I was the younger of the two, and I think I was about 4, and she was 5.5.
Could you leave it?
It doesn't stand up.
Just hold it. Okay. Oh, lovely. And you were the taller one?
No, I'm the smaller.
You're the smaller one. Okay. Perfect.
This is Jerry, taken by our ex-daughter-in-law, Amy Darsa. She's a very good
Oh,
photographer.
lovely. Very nice.
And this is my precious niece, Rochelle. There were a lot of people in the community.
This is the picture that was behind you the whole time. Wait, hold it. Hold it up again. Okay, now I got it. Rochelle is your niece, your sister's daughter?
My sister, this woman's daughter.
Okay.
This one's daughter.
Okay.
Not
Is
a
you-
happy story, though. She had renal failure, and
Oh.
Rochelle and her mother had the same thing.
Do you have any other living sisters?
Do I have any what?
Are your sisters still alive?
No, they're all gone.
Because I know your mom passed away in the last 5 years, wasn't it?
My brother passed away about 2 years ago. He was 90. And he was very special. He graduated from medical school with the highest average for 4 years. And had a very, very hard upbringing. He must have gone to maybe 5 high schools and, never really made close friends because they moved so much. Because they didn't, pay the rent, I guess.
So in terms of your future, do you go on vacations together? Or?
You know what, I really like being home a lot. I think that I'd like to go back east to see some friends, but the itch I told you about, until I can get that under control, I can't be scratching all night long and walking about around people's houses and going to the bathroom and all that.
And I know you're a member of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom.
Yes, I am.
And you have an outlook on politics. Do you want to give us a brief synopsis of what you think of?
Well, it started when I was about, my brother and sister-in-law took me to, I guess it was the Progressive Party? No, it was a Henry Wallace convention. It was a Democratic convention in 1948. I was still wearing dotted Swiss, if anybody knows what that is anymore. And so that was around the time that the Rosenbergs were executed, and it was a very dramatic time and a very scary time, and so since then I'm not like active politically, but I'm very aware of what's going on, and I'm voting for Garcetti for mayor, just for your information.
We love that.
And I've been in Peace and Freedom Party, and I, in spite of what other people say, I still love Barack Obama.
Oh, I love him too.
And I think he's brilliant and sexy and doing a better job than anybody else that I can think of in a very, very difficult, troubled time,
He's also a graduate of our local college.
Occidental.
No, he did. He went there for 2
Occidental.
years.
Yeah, he went.
And then
After
he went to
Hawaii, he
University
came
of
here.
Hawaii.
Before.
And then went to Yale and Harvard Law School.
Be a tough job for anyone.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate
I
it.
also want to just point out that both of our loves of music, of jazz, have been a really important part
Right.
of our lives. And I used to go to jazz clubs constantly. Did I say before that I would have been considered a jazz groupie if they had that sort of term?
What jazz clubs do you go to around the city here? Do you go?
Now?
And you know?
There are hardly any, like Catalina Bar and Grill.
Right.
And there used
Hollywood.
to be, the Parisian Room on La Brea and Black Orchid and a lot of them in the 60s, 70s. But I have a lot of recordings and DVDs.
Lovely.
I especially like female
How
vocals.
about Jazz on the Hill? Remember that? On the top of La Brea.
Oh yeah. It turned it turned into some other thing, but it was originally a jazz club right on Stalker and La Brea,
Yeah.
around there.
Yeah, it's a great location. Great bands there too.
When I first came to Los Angeles in 1965, I remember walking to Western and Crenshaw. I lived farther west, but I went to hear Dexter Gordon. I mean, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. I walked home. It was no biggie.
Man,
Neat.
I
Well, thank you so much.
you.
yeah, thank you.
Thank
Sorry,
you,
I have to
Tricia.
get going.
Appreciate it.
Okay.